It is Sunday, June 1st, 2025. It is 7:04 p.m. Day 14 of the day-by-day 40 Days of Doubt Devotions for the Skeptic, where he asks a question every single day, gives an explanation, or his explanation of it, the author does. And then I reacted last year with, typing out, or wrote out my response last year. I'll be reading that this year, and kind of getting a reaction to both what he said in his writings or book, and my reaction last year, kind of bringing it all home at the end. The question of the day is, why is the Bible so hard to understand? Part 1. I like to think I'm a smart guy. I've read dozens of novels by Dostoevsky and Tolstoy. I've once completed a New York Times crossword puzzle in under 90 minutes. I'm the guy my friends call when they're watching mind-bending movies like Interstellar and have no idea what's going on. I can comprehend just about anything I've read, but the Bible never fails to confuse me. Allow me to offer a few examples. Exodus 4, verse 24 through 26. At a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses and was about to kill him, but Zipporah took a flint knife, cut off her son's foreskin, and touched Moses' feet with it. Surely you are bridegroom of blood to me, she said. So the Lord let him alone. So many questions. Numbers 22, verse 27 through 30. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it lay down under and he was angry and beat it with his staff. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth and said to Balaam, "What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?" Balaam answered the donkey, "You have made a fool of me. If only I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now." The donkey said to Balaam, "I am not your own donkey, which you have always ridden am I not your donkey which you have ridden to this day? Have I been in the habit of doing this to you?" We're believing in talking donkeys now? Ephesians 6, verse 5. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear, and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. Gulp, it says. But as a fan of there's a lot of fucking words I don't know how to read in this chapter. God damn. But as a fan of Dostoevsky, let me do this. Dostoevsky. I must acknowledge the importance of context. His masterpiece, The Brothers of Karamazov, is clearly inspired by the time he spent doing hard time in prison and fighting in the Russian military. The most famous scene in that book, the courtroom, was shaped by his own time standing in front of the judge. You can't understand Dostoevsky or any other author unless you know where he's coming from. Many secularists today are happy to write the Bible off as nonsense without first doing their homework to understand its context. Before dismissing something as archaic, you should at least find out where it comes from, who wrote it, and why. I've heard scholars criticize the Old Testament law to take an eye for an eye, Leviticus 24, verse 20, suggesting it condones retributive violence, vigilante justice. But taken in context, an eye for an eye represented a sharp, progressive approaching to righting wrongs. 3,000 years ago, when someone stole from your tribe, you stole twice as much from theirs, or you cut off their arms, or you killed them. An eye for an eye was the most forward-thinking law of the land, contextually speaking. Actually, I have something to say that I don't think I mentioned in that. Yeah, I gotta remember that. The passage about slave and masters is another example of the importance of context. I'm sure everyone would love for the Apostle Paul in the New Testament to have said, "Masters, free your slaves," but that's imposing our 21st century Western enlightened will onto a foreign minority culture, which, by the way, is something intellectual humanists tend to find repulsive. Paul's mission was to make it possible for slaves and servants to participate in the churches and to hear the gospel of Jesus. Whenever you read Ephesians 6, verse 5, don't stop reading before you get to verse 9. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear, with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. And masters, treat your slaves the same way. Do not threaten them, since you know that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no favoritism with him. Ephesians 6, verse 5, verse 9, Ephesians added. Paul knew very well that requiring all masters to free their slaves would, at best, achieve freedom for a few. But if masters and slaves heard the gospel together, it would be the beginning of a movement that would free millions of slaves in the coming years. Don't ever tell me the Bible isn't radically irrelevant and revolutionary. It has enjoyed its unprecedented shelf life for a reason. You can understand it. You can trust it. The Bible is a story of God, inspired by God for the people of God. Now about that donkey, we'll start there tomorrow. Okay, so apparently there's a talking donkey in the next day. Oh, that's cool. But for the okay, so I understand the slave one. Yes, that makes sense. Like the whole, you can't just say free the slaves or whatever. I mean, you could, I guess, but contextually, I suppose I understand that a little bit more than the eye for the eye thing. Just because the eye for an eye thing is more progressive than what they were doing together. Sorry. So the eye for an eye thing was actually progressive in that time period, doesn't mean it's still the ultimate good that could have been done in that period. You know what I mean? Doesn't make it okay, basically. And that's a classic, as he said. It's like us modern civilization looking back and saying, well, that's still wrong. Just because it was better than the years previous doesn't mean it's right. That can be used a lot in history. And that's okay when you're talking about humans and human civilization and evolving as people and culture, but it's not necessarily okay when it's supposed to be an all-encompassing truth and righteous morality. That's what the Bible is kind of trying to preach, is the ultimate good and morality that you can have as a Christian or whatever. So it's okay to look back and see, this is an example, people from the 60s scoffing at people from the 40s, when we're now people from the 2000s looking at both of them. That's okay as a civilization contextually, right? But it's not necessarily okay if we're looking back at the eye for eye people scoffing at the just mutilate entire towns people, because that's coming from the Bible, which is supposed to be an ultimate good, which the ultimate good would obviously not still be, hey, let's get our vengeance back physically and so violently. So I wanted to put that in. Actually, this is the first time in this series that I've done that where I cut in before I read. My last year's response to this day was, you can understand it if you want to, and what it is that you understand is your choice. Context matters with any expression, yes, but it's in the Bible's lack of clarity that Christians are notorious for interpreting it however they need to fit what they want it to mean. I mean, yeah, that's fair, yeah. I mean, Christians are notorious. I mean, a lot of religious people are notorious. Anyone who's trying to push a narrative at all, actually, is a lot of times interpreting things however they want to push said narrative. The only thing, actually, I think I kind of disagree with what I said at the beginning. You can understand it if you want to, and what it is that you understand is your choice. I really kind of don't believe that. I don't know exactly what I was referencing or getting at then. I truly believe I believe what you believe isn't really ultimately up to you. It can gradually change if you question stuff. That's why I'm so big on questioning things, and I'm so big on doubt, even if it's something that's super obvious. Like, I guess really don't have any examples to give, but even if it's super obvious, I still think you should doubt stuff constantly. Just because you like someone doesn't mean you shouldn't question certain things about them, or vice versa. Just because you hate an ideology or you hate something doesn't mean you shouldn't agree with certain things and understand why that is, So I don't really know why I said understanding something is your choice, when really it's just all kind of just comes down to your brain chemistry if you really want to get down to it. But yeah. Christians are notorious for interpreting it however they need to fit what they want, and that's the problem with the lack of clarity in the Bible, which is what this day is talking about. But it also seems to be that, in reference to that talking donkey, seems like the next day is going to be talking even more about that. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. And whether you disagree with me or you agree with me, always question why.